Roadkill Garage, the crop duster is on the road again! Ah! Watch it, Freiburger! This thing's fast!
The saga of the crop duster continues. On the last episode of Roadkill Garage, we got our 440 cubic inch stroker big block installed in our 1970 Plymouth Duster, and now we need to make it a running, driving car.
Yes.
And I think the first wrenching is gonna be front suspension, yeah?
Yeah, actually, I think I will attack the front suspension, and I will have you attack the brake plumbing.
Oh, he always assigns me the labor that he doesn't want to do.
What?
Okay.
You love putting in the line lock.
Let's commence with cleanup.
Okay. I've got the shop pretty well cleaned up, so when I first put all the suspension together here, I didn't really tighten the bolts or adjust anything, so I've got to torque everything down. Adjustments made. I'm going to get right into it.
I got assigned to plumb the brakes in the whole front half of the car, which is going to be a giant nuisance. Here's what we got going on here. First of all, we converted to a late model aluminum master cylinder, which replaces that big old clunker of an iron one that would have come stock. We've got a Mancini Racing adapter block that also offsets the whole master cylinder to the outside of the car, just for more clearance to the engine. Now, the thing I'm gonna have to do is install a line lock, which makes it so you step on the brake pedal and it holds pressure to the front brakes, but none to the rear, so that you can do burnouts, which is really good. And then I also have to install the adjustable proportioning valve, which goes in the rear line, and it adjusts the brake pressure when you stab the brakes so that you don't have the rear brakes locking up before the front, because if you do that, it tends to make the car come around. So that's an adjustable proportioning valve. The problem with all of this is you have to figure out where you're gonna mount all of this junk, and then how you're gonna plumb it in and out without getting all of the lines absolutely everywhere. So I've got hours of frustration ahead.
That's one job done. I'm going to be putting in these QA1 double adjustable shocks, and even though they look brand new, these are actually the ones that were on the car before. And I've got to say, I'm pretty proud of myself for keeping all of this stuff together. I've also got the braking system going on, and most of the suspension is going to be completed before you know it. Don't blink or you're gonna miss it.
I think I've made a decision, which is at least 50% of this job. The problem now is I know I'm gonna mount my roll control down here, but I can't get a drill motor in there, and we don't have a 90-degree drill motor. And I think what I'm gonna do is line it up perfectly with this factory stamped hole that I can see from the other side, so that I can hopefully get this thing level, which I probably won't do, and then I'm gonna be really irritated by that. That will land there. Now I gotta drill the other hole. Let's see if I got it straight. This is the moment of truth. By eyeball, that seems good enough. Right now I have to hog those holes out, bolt this in lightly, and then figure out if I can actually make those tough brake lines to go out to the wheels.
I'm going to launch into something that's not super technical, but is super satisfying, and that's putting on an emblem. Originally, these are retained with a one-way push-on metal clip, and they're super hard to remove. So here's a little tech tip. You can use some tight-fitting vacuum hose, and then I'll put a little silicone sealer inside. That'll hold it. Don't worry, it'll never fall off. But the thing is, if you want to take it off, you can remove it pretty easily. So let's see how it looks. I'll call that installed.
I'm still doing brake hard lines, and I'm gonna show you how to make a double flare, because this is the greatest tool in the shop, and I haven't showed it to you for a while. So here's what's going on. I've got my piece of brake hard line. I've already cut it to length using my tubing cutter. After I cut my tube, I take a drill like that, and I'm just going to deburr the end of it where I left a little bit of slag in there. And then I have a very fine file where if it's not perfectly square on the end, I'll make it perfectly square. Then I'll take the burrs off like that. This one's already pretty good. Next, this is a hardline flaring tool that we got from the Eastwood Company, and it is fantastic. But what I'm gonna do is double flare a 45-degree end onto my 3/16 hardline. So I've selected the right jaws for that, and then I am going to clamp that hard line in place and tightening that down pretty hard because you don't want to push the hard line out of the tool. Now, this rotating wheel right here is like the roulette wheel of tubing sizes. And what I'm looking for is operation 1 for my 3/16 hard line, which is right there. Once I've chosen it, all I do is grab this lever and pretty much pull it until it won't go anymore. Now I'm gonna flip this around to my operation number 2 for 3/16 hardline and do the same thing. Boom, pull that out, a perfect double flare for the end of my brake line. Watch, put that fitting on, perfectly concentric.
This is the linkage for the column shift setup. It was modified and put in the car a long time ago, but wasn't given any attention beyond that. I'm gonna clean it up, give it a coat of paint, and then put it in.
It's so ridiculous, but that took about 45 minutes. This goes from the roll control halfway over to the other side of the car. I'm gonna have to couple it in the middle because I can't get one piece all the way across. So that's just one piece of the brake system. Now I have to do master cylinder to the roll control, master cylinder down to the proportioning valve, roll control to the left side, roll control to the right side. It's a lot. Another one done. Kind of proud of that one. Look, it's got the springy thing and everything. Watch this. It's gonna go through this little hole to the bottom of the roll control, and then this one's gonna go right in there. Boom.
Mechanically, there's not much more I can do on the car until we get it on the ground, so I'm moving on to the interior. The first thing I'm gonna look at is this dash pad. I've got a good reused one to replace it with, so from there, I might move on to the carpeting. Well, I'll just see how far I get. See you later. Okay, a new one going on. I pulled this one out of my 70 Dodge Dart Swinger, and I styled Freiburger out by giving it to him. That's way better.
It was gruesome, but I made it happen. I got all of the hard lines done. The only one I'm really proud of is this one, which perfectly matches the curve and the drape of the one right next to it. It's almost as if they were made for each other. Tighten those down and we're good to go. Plum brakes, done. So all we have to do mechanically now is bleed the brakes and set the front end alignment, and I'm pretty sure everything else on this list is cosmetic, just finishing up the paint job work. Steve's actually restoring the instrument cluster right now, which is pretty cool.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm separating those two pieces, and then I'm gonna refinish the bezel. Now, I'm not gonna try to make it resto perfect, but I can certainly make it look a lot better than it does now.
Man, this interior is gonna be nice.
Yeah?
I just wish we had a new dash pad, man. That cracked one that you had on there is, what?
Where did that come from?
You've been stepping over it for about a year.
Oh, you bought one?
Long ago.
You knucklehead.
Me?
I just installed that. Oh, man.
Besides, now you're well practiced for installing that thing.
I can call you a knucklehead for that one.
Me?
Yeah.
No! Rear view mirror. Okay. Got the rear view mirror on there, but here's a new item for the list. How do you get this much overspray off glass?
I had installed this used dashboard, but Freiburger had forgotten that he bought this brand new one, so it'll look even better. That's the world's easiest dashboard install. All I have to do is put the fasteners in there, and that job is done, once again.
I'm finally going to install the Duster decal that I've been waiting for. We've got our Valiant badges, which were 1970 only, by the way. I'm going to just center this thing, and by center it, I mean between the underside of the badge and this body line. Soap it up a little bit. There we go. And done. Perfection. Oh man, that looks cool. Steve, do you want to look? It looks great.
That's exactly where it was.
Yep.
Perfect.
Mint.
I'm pretty much done. Yeah, I nailed it. Just want to give it another coat for texture, and this thing's going to be perfect.
Brand new door handles. Tech tip, you do have to wipe Dulcich's blood off everything before you install it when you're here at the Roadkill Garage. Fun facts to know and tell. It's good cocktail party fodder. Okay, let's see. There you go. All set.
Freiburger is making a big deal about overspray all over the glass. But the thing is, whenever you're doing an extensive paint job like this, you're gonna get debris on the glass unless you take it out, and we left it in. So first step at cleaning it, just using regular spray-on glass cleaner, and then you can just use some sparkle. It's an industrial product you can get at your glass supply, and it takes some light overspray off. If you got some really heavy deposits, you're gonna have to razor blade it, but you can scratch your glass, so you better be careful if you're gonna do that. I'm gonna avoid it at all costs. You don't wanna use an excess amount. It starts to dry up.
On one hand, every single job I do takes longer than I expected just because there's more fiddling with aftermarket parts and chipping a paint and cleaning a windows. But that said, we are knocking them down. There you go, door lock, cylinders, and trunk. In fact, we're doing so well that we're gonna call it a night. We're gonna come back tomorrow and attack it again and bask in the glory of the crop duster.
I still have a couple parts of the car that need to be painted body color, and that includes the side marker housings and the gas cap. Now, the rear side markers and the gas cap are brand new and they come already primered, but I've had to restore the front housings and I've stripped them by glass beating them. But rather than just mix up 1 tablespoon of primer, I'm just gonna hit them with this Spray Bomb self-etching primer from Eastwood and then let that dry off, give it a tiny scuff, and shoot all the stuff with body color.
Last night I had some time to think about priorities, and I realized I promised you that the crop duster was going to run and drive by the end of the episode, and secondarily, it was going to be looking good with all of the trim and everything to match the new paint job. So I'm going to begin this morning by putting the bumpers and bumper brackets on, and here is a tech tip. If you're working on a Mopar and you're wondering which part goes on the right side and which goes on the left, it turns out that odd numbers are the left-hand side of the car, driver's side, even numbers are the right-hand side of the car. I remember that from when I worked at the Dodge dealership just out of high school.
I'm just gonna paint this stuff outside because there's hardly anything to do and I don't want a bunch of overspray in the shop, and my paint garage is full right now. Believe me, it's gonna turn out fine. One of the most important things is knowing when to just walk away. This is done.
This is a moment Steve has been waiting for, I don't know.
Don't say 3 years or I'll be upset.
I know. Putting the bumper on. We got new bumpers, front and rear. We don't have quite enough bumper bolts. I ordered every single one that Summit Racing had. I got the ones from Classic Industries that are really good. They're not just like a cheap chrome bolt with a big dome. They've got the stainless steel cap on them, and they're all flat, which is like the good kind. Is the license plate perfectly centered in the center of the grill?
Yes.
I'm installing it. Oh, man. Easiest ever.
Freiburger, it ain't cool if your chrome don't shine.
Yeah.
Whoa, that is nice.
Man, the tail lights are like an important part of the whole je ne sais quoi, the 70 and 71 Duster, and these are pretty trashed. And I tried to get new ones, and they were on like terminal back order, so I'm gonna have to restore these, polish them up, paint them black, all that stuff.
The next thing I'm going to work on are these stainless steel reveal moldings. They go around the windshield and the rear window on the Duster, and they kind of frame them, and if they look shabby, it kind of lets the whole car down. You can polish these by hand, but they're still going to look dull, I can assure you of that. So what you need to do is a pro-style polishing job. I've got a loose polishing bonnet in my drill press set at high speed right now. How you use it, you turn on the buffer, apply the compound, which comes in a hard stick, and then just start polishing. Now the thing is, you've always got to get the wheel turning off an edge. If it catches an edge, all bets are off. You'll break the piece and ruin it. I've got the reveal moldings all polished up, and I've got new mounting clips installed, so this should just hammer right in place.
Yay! That took about 2 hours, but completely worth it. Completely restored, new foams, and oh, look at that. Totally worth it. Mint. The next step towards making this thing run and drive is the brake pedal push rod. We have an aftermarket master cylinder, an aftermarket offset bracket for the master cylinder, and an aftermarket push rod. They don't all go together, and this is gonna be the victim that's gonna get mangled to make it all work. This is my late model master cylinder. This is my aftermarket push rod, which has a groove in it just like the original old Mopars that takes a little rubber bushing in there, and that rubber bushing snaps into the end of the master cylinder to keep the push rod from falling out when the brake pedal retracts. The problem is this master does not have that groove in it, so I'm gonna have to figure that out. This master that's similar has the groove in it. You can see though, this one is a 1-inch bore right there, and this one over here is bigger than that. And so I'm gonna have less hydraulic pressure with this new master cylinder and probably not as good a pedal feel on this deal, but this one has the snappy thingy in it. And so there's just gonna be a lot of fiddling here to get this to be the right length and to retain in the master cylinder.
I made a mistake when I was working on the side marker assemblies on the bench. On the front, on the Duster, you can't put the lens in until the housing's actually bolted in the car. So I had to remove the lens, which is a little tricky, but luckily it came off without breaking. And now I'm actually gonna put it in the right way. Okay, done.
I'm also having to grind down the outside diameter because it rubs on the brake pedal. The pushrod story is coming to an end. I had to shorten the threads, shorten the body, cut down the OD of the body so it didn't hit a bracket underneath the dash, and then to put it together, I didn't have a jam nut, so I had to Loctite it, and then down here, I've got the little rubber doohickey that I told you about that retains the pushrod in the master cylinder. Unfortunately, I decided I'm gonna have to go with that other master cylinder that I had because it was machined for the rubber doohickey and the other one wasn't. So watch how this thing's just gonna pop into the bore here and retain that pushrod. And boom. Now it's retained and won't come out.
Okay, the job here is going to be attaching the steering column coupler to the steering box. There's a spline, and sometimes it takes a little work to line it up just right for the roll pin that locks it off to go in.
We've sort of given up on getting the interior done in this episode, so we're not putting the instrument cluster in that's getting so perfectly restored. It seems like it's all the way up against the firewall.
Probably, because this pot coupler's got to slide on the shaft.
Yeah, I can wiggle, I can't push.
I'm gonna...
Tap it and mangle the bail.
I don't want to mangle the bail.
There's this bail on a little box that has little shoes in it that connects the steering column to the thing, and it's a Mopar disaster. I don't know why they did it that way.
Turn it clockwise.
Okay, clocking.
Stop.
She's having to tap this thing to get the splines to engage up to the point where we can get a roll pin in it.
So I'm gonna put the pin in that's gonna lock down the steering column to the box. And because it's way down in there, I'm gonna use the socket and extension as a punch and drive it in.
Yeah. Wait. I think the socket's bottomed, hasn't it?
It is now.
Yeah. Good?
Oh,
Mint?
factory, man.
Now I have to go under the dash and bolt this whole shebang back up, and I think this job's done. Man, we had a complete brand new TTI exhaust system for the crop duster all the way out to the rear bumper, but we're running out of time. And so we're gonna use the original exhaust system. You know what makes this kind of nostalgic? Pieces of this were actually from the original motorhome 440 powered General Mayhem 68 Charger. And then we put it on the crop duster. And I don't know where Steve went. And so Wiley is gonna jump in and help me throw this thing under the car. So we're finally gonna put the wheels and tires back on and drop this thing on the ground.
All right.
Okay, let her down for the first time in a long time. When the car was up on jack stands, it actually flexed so much that we couldn't adjust the doors. But now it's on the ground. I'm going to install new strikers, and then we're going to get into making them work right.
What I'm doing is adjusting the striker pin, and if it's misaligned, it can actually blow out the door jamb area, especially on these A-body Mopars. Now, what I did is I just lined up the height that it needs to line up with the latch, and you can eyeball it right through the gaps. And then I took a guess at where it needed to go as far as in and out, and I set it right here. It proved to be a little bit too far in, so I set a couple of guide pieces of tape to keep my reference, and I'm just gonna move it out a little bit, and then I'll try again. Okay. Okay, that's pretty good.
Here we go. Well, the crop duster. The mechanical is done. The body is all finished with the exception of weather strip. And so, surprise! Here's what's gonna happen for the interior of the car, which we're actually not gonna get to in this episode, but we do need a seat. And if you've never seen this before, you're probably a little shocked. Yes, it is green with yellow plaid. So one of the things I really wanted to do with the car with a black and white motif is have some color to make it pop. It had a factory green interior, and we're going with this again. This is a factory 1971 seat pattern. I paid a fortune for this because I think it's original material. This gives me a flashback to a car that a friend of mine had back when I was in high school. One of the very first cars I ever rode in, and one of the very first that I ever drove, and the first I ever got in a crash in. It was a 71 Twister with this kind of interior, so I had to have it. I know it's crazy, but it's fantastic. So we're gonna throw the seat in this thing, and then we're pretty much ready to take it for its very first road test.
This is the end of a big journey for me and the crop duster because honestly, I loved the car the way it was when we started, that beater street race look. But it had a couple of problems that just couldn't stay. One of them was the big hole in the driver's side A-pillar, and also the crumbling lead at the bottom of the cowl, but look at those spots now. They were really the only two things that I worked on the car myself. Well, that and a little bit of the right rear quarter panel. Everything else you see here is pure Steve Dulcich work, and he found out that a duster has a lot of body lines in it, a ton of facets that made it very difficult to get perfect, but perfect is what he did. It looks amazing in that factory alpine white color. I've also got to thank Classic Industries for all of the little detail restoration parts that make this car flawless, especially that 1971 Shark's Tooth grille. People say that getting a car painted is not very roadkill. But you know what? I say look at the last 3 years of backyard labor and bootleg techniques handled by Steve Dulcich, and that was very roadkill. But the result, maybe not so much, because the crop duster is truly mint.
Well, it still needs an interior and weather stripping and like 78 other little details, but I promised you running and driving by the end of the episode, and 3 or 4 years later, that's what's about to happen. Except you know what, Steve?
What's that?
Since the last time you and I drove this car, we have touched every single fastener in the entire vehicle. Every one of them.
From now on, you're keeping it clean.
Oh.
Let's hit the road and see what this thing will do.
We're about to dust it out for the first time. The duster will be dusted.
Should happen.
Here we go. Oh, power steering still works mint, really? For one time, I am not gonna be doing burnouts on the way out of here. No. Fan on.
It's been a long time, man.
It has.
Dude, I can't believe it's been that long since...
The full bro, dude.
The bro shake already?
Yeah.
Are we bro shaking this early into it?
The success is already here.
How's the alignment?
Pretty good. Feels weird.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if this carburetor's that great because we tried it on the 56 and we didn't like it.
I know. But man, we're running and driving in the crop duster.
There we are. Dude,
It basically never ends.
no, dude. I was like, he's gonna lift. Okay, Freiburger.
Dulcich, they told us if we couldn't get the crop duster running and driving, we were gonna lose the show.
Oh no! Hit it, Freiburger! Let off it, man. It just never stops. Wow! Talk about burnouts for distance, dude.
That was awesome.
Bro shake.
Bro shake.
Boom.
Crop duster is back.
Oh, meaner, better, badder than ever.
Bigger, better, faster, louder.
It is.
All win, baby. All right, Dulcich, well, that's the end of this part of the crop duster saga.
I think that the shakedown run proved very, very adequate, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think our most success ever, honestly.
I mean, we just slammed this thing together, untested, took it out, did the most massive straight line burnout for distance of
Ever.
any-
Yeah. No, it's really
That's
good.
a-
You know
yeah.
what, Dulcich? I gotta give this to you. You essentially gave me this car. You assembled the engine. You painted it. This thing is all you.
Well, I broed you out, bro.
Yeah, you broke me out. Crop duster wins!
Yeah.
Never thought I'd see this day.
Here's the little inside baseball. Now, every time we get done with an episode of Roadkill Garage, we end up with this situation. A complete mess of the whole shop. Now, I just get my ear chewed off because I'm the guy that's supposed to do it. You know what? I am the host, and I am just not going to deal with it. Brad, you clean it up.
Oh, man. You should see my reflection in the bumper, Dulcich. I'm stunning. I definitely got the wrong hammer for that job.
What it meant to me will eventually be a memory of a time when I tried so hard and got so far. But in the end, it doesn't even matter. I had to fall to lose it all. But in the end, it doesn't even matter. One thing, I don't know why. It doesn't even matter how hard you try. Keep that in mind. I designed this rhyme to remind myself how I tried so hard, in spite of the way you were mocking me, acting like I was part of your property, remembering all the times you fought with me. I'm surprised it got so. Things aren't the way they were before. You wouldn't even recognize me anymore. Not that you knew me back then, but it all comes back to
counter when I looked away. Saw you turn around, but it wasn't